Hello, this is the seminar of the epistemology course. It is about the paper From Discipline and Punish to Allegory of the Cave. How authoritarian regimes institutionalize ideological indoctrination in the Arab world. So the Arab world is suffering from two kinds of regimes. Firstly, the pre-constitutional monarchies, such as the Gulf countries, and mostly built on tribal loyalty. The second is the national regimes in the rest of the Arab world, such as Egypt and Iraq, and always have a dictatorships. So they use different means to ensure discipline of their societies because they can easily lose their legitimacy if there are a freedom of speech and critical thinking. So ideological indoctrination can be defined as a epistemic closure, a structural process through which this regime keep their society in the cave of the epistemic closure. And this paper I have argued that they have four kinds of these processes. Firstly, the education system. In the Arab world, governments manage all the stages of education, from kindergartens to the universities. They always focus on memorization rather than critical thinking. Uh, and this process continues even in the universities. For example, there are not uh, discussions, uh, nor written assignments even, but we can name it a lecture exam model. Uh, and here even sciences like ideology, you know, humanities or sciences, you don't use the libraries. There are always a fixed syllabus. You read them and then you go to the exam. And this is the whole process. And this, of course, will prevent any epistemic openness, different perspectives, specifically for the humanities, because they cannot read the others. The second structure or process is the state-controlled media. The Like the novel of the 1984 by George Orwell, The Ministry of the Truth. So the authorities monopolize the media and the press and even the cinema. They financing the cinema. So for this reason, there are not successful cinema in the Arab world. And these governments, by the way, lose a lot of money on the media. But of course, it is investment to don't lose their legitimacy upon their people. And the new regimes started to have legitimacy on the other countries. For example, the Saudi Arabia started has a successful TVs to have a kind of legitimacy on the Sunni Arab world, while Qatarian want for the Islamic, a more comprehensive, they have a narrative. Thirdly, the official Islam, I name it, the monopoly of religious authority. So all the Arab states, the government manage also the religious societies, the even the clerics are public sector employees. The, they manage everything, the fatwas, and they even have prayers for the rural in the mosques. And of course, for the people will think this is a very natural, and the dictator like the father of the nation, the absence of the critical thinking. Uh, and the religious, of course, will add a sacred impression on these regimes. Uh, the fourth, the monolingualism. English proficiency is law to the very law in most of the Arab countries, uh, which reduces the exposure to international media and management engagement. Sorry, with the international communities, as English is the most widely spoken language in the world. And in my opinion, this is intentional because the governments are don't need such a stepping openness to happen in the Arab world, because if the citizens start to read books or watch the TVs at different narratives, of course they will have another perspectives that could lead to a new wave of criticism, because even the translated work is uh, pass a process to come to the readers. So of course always have a changing or kind of surveillance on these works, and there are a lot of work is prevented from libraries. Uh, Lastly, the digital media. So digital media added a very wonderful uh, openness and different perspectives, and led to the Arab Spring. Unfortunately, didn't succeed and went to the chaotic revolutions. So the government here noticed that digital media can easily affect our regimes. So they started to finance a new kind of platforms. So we can say they buy most the influencers, and there are legal restrictions on saying anything. Uh, but at the same time, there are a lot of influencers outside the Arab world, and they are have a successful workers uh, uh, against the government. But of course, the countries still have a sort of power that prevent uh, such criticism to be a movement or a wave that could affect the ruling. Toward epistemic openness. So this paper explored the mechanisms of the ideological indoctrination, and it is necessary to reform these mechanisms to achieve epistemic openness and different frameworks and perspectives. So educational system should encourage critical thinking rather than ideological reproduction. And here the private sector could work on this, because the public schools and universities cannot do that. Also, the media institutions must move toward independence beyond the government financing. Also, by the way, the linguistic openness happened because there are international applications and distance learning, and they are very important. Lastly, the legal reform is the most important battle between the people and the governments, and unfortunately it will be a very long battle. Thank you very much.